Hello, pretty people, and welcome to my Thursday talk. Today's topic is naming the beast. When I got the terrible news that my son had an incurable muscle wasting disease, obviously my world just fell apart, and I thought I would never live to see another happy day. I cried and I cried, and I just felt like it was so hard to talk about it, and I thought I would never be able to talk about it without crying. I just didn't see that happening ever. And it did take me some time just to be able to talk about it without tearing up. And, I still do tear up a little bit when I do talk about it. It just depends on how I'm emotionally doing. But it's getting better with time. And first, after the period right after I was diagnosed, it's just something that is kind of a big haze for me. I don't remember much from that period, but the care center where they were handling Irish case, the specialists there they were talking to us and recommending that we would discuss this with Ayer and explain it to him. And because their experience was that it is much better to, as soon as possible, explain it for the children what is happening and name the disease. And you don't have to be, don't have to go to too much detail or anything like that. You just have to explain to the child, you have Duchenne, and that means your muscles are not as strong as with other children. You don't even have to say anything more, just age appropriate, right? So just it's so important that at least that is what they said to us, not to be concealing any information from the child. It's just complicating everything very much, and it's harder on everyone. So they really emphasized that this was something that was important to do. And at that point, I really struggled with that. I had a lot of angst and just it was really hard for me to do that. For me, it was just enough dealing with the fact that my son had Duchenne. I was kind of angry with them. Why are they pushing us like this? Why can't I just still be in denial a little bit longer and just push it away so I don't have to face this reality? For me, that was much easier than having to sit down with my 5-year-old son and saying, just uttering those terrible words. You have Duchenne. Your muscles are not as strong as other children, and that's why it's so hard for you to walk. And my head, I couldn't wrap my head around it. And I felt like if I said those words, I would be robbing my son of his childhood, taking his innocence away. That's how I felt at that time. So it was so excruciatingly painful from my little mommy's heart to say that, having to say that to my sweet little boy. I can't even describe it to you. It was really, really tough because I felt like it was so final, I could never take those words back once we had named this monster that had barged into our lives, Duchenne. So I guess, the thought of saying it to Ayer meant that I was confirming that it was true. I'm sure deep within, I was just kind of hoping that it was all a bad dream. And if I didn't say anything, then this wouldn't be real. I guess your mind kind of takes you into those places when faced with something that is just too hard, probably a safe mechanism or something. But fortunately, I got over that. And to my surprise, it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. And come to think of it, it was surprisingly easy and in a way, a little bit of a relief. Because when you have a name for something, everything becomes much more simpler, and children, I just love how children think. They're not overthinking things like we adults do. And I just, I sat down with Ayer and I explained it, kind of very simply as they recommended to do, and age appropriate. And he didn't even think that much about it, really. he hardly asked any questions. I mean, he was he was almost 5 at the time, and I didn't really get those tough questions that I thought I would get from him. But he just, okay, and went back to playing. And for me, it was just this strange relief, that this was over. So it was a huge relief for me when I finally did it. And I never would have believed how much it helped to be able to name the disease, that it had a name, because there are all sorts of circumstances, that, arise. Like when he was in kindergarten and the children would ask why my son could ride bike a little, I don't know what the name is for it, without the pedals that they kind of run along with. And they couldn't do that, and he was able to. He had to have some sort of assist when they were going out for hikes, and they would be asking why does he get to ride one of those and not us? And then it was so helpful to be able to say, because he's got Duchenne, his muscles aren't as strong as your muscles, so he can't walk as far as you. And the kids were so quick to understand. They just, oh, okay, and then that was it. And that's why it is so important to be able to name everything what it's by the right name, because then we are able to work with that and everything becomes more simpler, right? And since then, a lot of situations have arisen, where I've had to, explain it just like that, because it's got Duchenne and his muscles aren't strong like yours. And without exception, I don't have to say anything more. It's just settled. It's like, oh, okay. And we just move on. So it was so much easier for us. We didn't have to dwell on it. And, sometimes just the thought of doing something is hard. But when you finally do it, then it was much more easier than you ever imagined. And it can even make your life more easy. And today I'm so grateful for the people at the care center, for pushing me to do it, because it's never good to, hide things and not, just you have to face things and get real, and especially for the kids, what if I maybe when he was older, he would start to Google things and go online and see something, that he wouldn't be ready to see. That would have been much worse. And also I find, someone who is with someone who has a rare disease or whatever condition you have, you don't get as much empathy and understanding out in society if you can't explain what is wrong. And for me, telling Ayer that he had Duchenne was so good. It was good for him. I see that now, as tough as it was, and I hated having to sit down with him and having that discussion. But I see it now. For him, he can just explain it very simply when the kids are asking him, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? Or whatever comes up. And he can just say, because I've got Duchenne, my muscles aren't strong like yours. And like I said, they just, oh, okay. And then we'll figure something out, and they just go on playing. So it really is that simple. And it doesn't really matter what kind of disease or developmental challenges you're facing, or children are facing, whether it's autism, Duchenne, ADHD, or whatever it is. The main thing I believe is just to be honest and don't hide anything from your children. Don't be afraid to name things for the real name. And I think in doing that, we kind of lessen the complication of all of it. It's so much simpler. And the one thing that I would want to end with is just, remember to keep it simple and age appropriate, and you don't have to go too deep into it and say too much. It's just that comes later on. And I do believe that just open discussion about everything is always a good thing. Don't you agree? I think that pretty much in life, that is a good thing. So that is what I wanted to share with you today. Like usual, all my love to you. Have a great weekend, guys.